Muammar Gaddafi was born in 1942 in a small village near Ceuta, Libya. He came from humble beginnings, growing up in a family that struggled to make ends meet. His family were Bedouin nomads, living a traditional lifestyle that involved moving across the desert. They lived in the harsh deserts of Ceuta, a region known for its arid climate and challenging living conditions. Gaddafi's childhood was marked by poverty. Despite these hardships, he valued education immensely. He studied hard, often under difficult circumstances. He excelled in his lessons, showing a keen intellect and a strong desire to learn. Gaddafi was deeply impacted by the events around him, particularly the political turmoil at the time. The Suez Crisis of 1956 was pivotal in shaping his worldview. It ignited his passion against colonialism and fueled his desire to see his country free from foreign influence. He became acutely aware of the West's influence in the Arab world, which he saw as a form of modern-day colonialism. This awareness fueled his desire for change and inspired him to take action. He wanted independence for all Arab nations, believing in the power of unity and self-determination. Gaddafi finished secondary school in Sabha, where he continued to excel academically. He then enrolled in the University of Libya in Benghazi, aiming to further his education and broaden his horizons. However, his time there was short-lived as he found his true calling elsewhere. He pursued his military ambitions instead, seeing the military as a means to achieve his goals for Libya. He joined the Royal Military Academy in 1963, where he received rigorous training. This decision set him on the path to becoming Libya's leader, a role that would define his life and legacy. Gaddafi, a young and ambitious military officer, formed a secret revolutionary group with a vision for a new Libya. They called themselves the Free Officers Movement, a name that symbolized their commitment to change. This group was driven by Gaddafi's ideology, which was a blend of nationalism, socialism, and anti-imperialism. They sought to overthrow the monarchy, which they saw as an obstacle to Libya's progress and independence. King Idris, they believed, was corrupt and out of touch with the needs of the Libyan people. He allowed Western influence in Libya, which many Libyans resented as a form of neo-colonialism. The Free Officers carefully planned their move, ensuring every detail was meticulously thought out. They chose September 1st, 1969, a date of great symbolic importance. It was the anniversary of the Italian invasion, a day that resonated deeply with Libyan history and sentiment. Gaddafi, then a young and charismatic army officer, led the bloodless coup with precision and determination. They seized control of Tripoli, the heart of the nation, without firing a single shot. They declared an end to the monarchy, marking the beginning of a new era for Libya. The coup was a success, executed flawlessly and without resistance. It was welcomed by many Libyans who saw it as a liberation from years of stagnation and foreign influence. They were tired of the monarchy, which they felt had failed to address their needs and aspirations. Gaddafi emerged as the leader of the revolution, a figure who promised to bring about radical change. He became the de facto head of state, wielding significant power and influence. He was just 27 years old, yet he had already altered the course of Libyan history. Muammar Gaddafi was a complex and controversial figure. He was a revolutionary leader. He was a political theorist. He outlined his vision in his Green Book. This book became the cornerstone of his ideology. Published in 3 parts between 1975 and 1979, the Green Book challenged Western democracy. Gaddafi called it a dictatorship. He believed it oppressed the masses. He proposed an alternative, the Jamahiriya. This meant state of the masses in Arabic. Gaddafi's Green Book promoted direct democracy. It advocated for economic and social justice. It emphasized self-reliance and Arab unity. It denounced Western imperialism and capitalism. Gaddafi's Green Book outlined his unique political philosophy. It blended Arab nationalism with Islamic socialism. He sought to create a new social order. He called it the Third International Theory. Gaddafi nationalized key industries. He invested heavily in social programs. He aimed to improve the lives of ordinary Libyans. His government provided free education. It made healthcare accessible to all. It offered housing subsidies. Gaddafi's policies had a significant impact. Libya saw dramatic improvements. Literacy rates soared, life expectancy increased. Gaddafi's socialist policies angered the West. They saw him as a threat to their interests. Section 5. The Jamahiriya, Gaddafi's experiment in direct democracy. Central to Gaddafi's ideology was the concept of Jamahiriya. This translates to state of the masses. He presented it as a system of direct democracy. It aimed to give power to the people. The Jamahiriya system was based on popular committees. These committees represented various segments of Libyan society. They were responsible for local governance. They had a say in national decision-making. Gaddafi abolished the traditional government structure. He aimed to eliminate bureaucracy. He believed it hindered people's participation. He envisioned a society where everyone had a voice. He wanted people to directly shape their destiny. Section 6. A Voice for Africa. Gaddafi's Pan-African Vision. Muammar Gaddafi was a staunch advocate for Africa. He was deeply committed to the idea of a united continent, believing that Africa's strength lay in its unity and collective potential. He believed in the continent's potential, seeing vast opportunities for development and growth. Gaddafi envisioned a future where African nations could thrive independently, free from external influence. He envisioned a united and powerful Africa where countries would collaborate closely on economic, political, and social fronts. His vision was one of solidarity and mutual support among African nations. He played a pivotal role in promoting Pan-Africanism, tirelessly advocating for the idea of a single, cohesive African identity. His efforts were instrumental in bringing leaders together to discuss and plan for a unified future. Gaddafi used Libya's oil wealth to support African nations. He believed that the continent's natural resources should benefit its people, and he worked to ensure that wealth was shared. He provided financial aid to struggling economies, offering support to countries in need. His financial contributions helped stabilize economies and foster development in various regions. He funded infrastructure projects across the continent, investing in roads, schools, and hospitals. These projects were aimed at improving the quality of life for millions of Africans and boosting economic growth. He also played a key role in mediating conflicts, stepping in to resolve disputes and promote peace. His diplomatic efforts were crucial in maintaining stability in several regions. He worked tirelessly to bring peace to war-torn regions, often acting as a mediator in conflicts. His dedication to peace was evident in his numerous efforts to broker agreements and end hostilities. Gaddafi's efforts to unite Africa were significant. He was a driving force behind many initiatives aimed at fostering unity and cooperation among African nations. He helped found the African Union in 2002, a major milestone in the quest for African unity. The organization aimed to promote economic integration and political stability across the continent. He saw it as a step towards a unified continent, where African nations could work together to address common challenges and achieve shared goals. He championed the idea of a single African currency, believing it would strengthen economic ties and empower African economies. A unified currency, he argued, would facilitate trade and investment across the continent. He believed it would empower African economies, providing them with the tools needed to compete on a global scale. Gaddafi's vision for Africa was one of prosperity, unity, and self-reliance. Section 7. The United States of Africa, Gaddafi's unfulfilled dream. Gaddafi's vision for Africa extended beyond the African Union. He dreamed of a more integrated continent. He called for the creation of the United States of Africa. Gaddafi believed that a unified Africa would be a global power. It would have a stronger voice on the world stage. It would be economically independent. It would be free from Western influence. Gaddafi's vision resonated with some African leaders. However, it faced significant obstacles. There were concerns about sovereignty. Some leaders were skeptical of Gaddafi's motives. The dream of a United States of Africa remained unfulfilled. Section 8. A leader misunderstood, challenging Western narratives. Muammar Gaddafi was a polarizing figure. He was hailed as a hero by some. He was condemned as a dictator by others. Western media often portrayed him negatively. They focused on his authoritarian tendencies. Gaddafi's supporters argue that he was misunderstood. They point to his achievements in Libya. He significantly improved living standards. He challenged Western imperialism. He advocated for a more just world order. Gaddafi's critics argue that he was a brutal dictator. They point to his human rights record. They criticize his suppression of dissent. They argue that his Jamahiriya system was a sham. Section 9, the 2011 uprising and Gaddafi's demise. The Arab Spring of 2011 swept across North Africa. It ignited protests in Libya. People demanded democracy and an end to Gaddafi's rule. What started as peaceful demonstrations escalated into a civil war. NATO intervened militarily in support of the rebels. They launched airstrikes against Gaddafi's forces. They imposed a no-fly zone over Libya. Gaddafi's regime crumbled after months of fighting. He was captured and killed by rebel forces in October 2011. Gaddafi's death marked the end of an era in Libya. It also had significant implications for Africa. Gaddafi was a key figure in the African Union. His absence created a void in Pan-African leadership. Section 10. The legacy of a controversial figure. Muammar Gaddafi's legacy remains complex and contested. He was a revolutionary leader who overthrew a monarchy. He implemented unique political and economic systems. He was a vocal advocate for Africa on the world stage. Gaddafi's rule was also marked by authoritarianism and human rights abuses. His vision for a united Africa, while ambitious, faced significant challenges. His death left a void in Libyan and African politics. It remains to be seen how history will ultimately judge him. Section 11. Gaddafi's enduring influence in Africa. Despite his controversial legacy, Gaddafi's ideas continue to resonate with some Africans. His Pan-African vision in particular still holds appeal. Many admire his defiance of the West. They remember his support for liberation movements. Gaddafi's investments in infrastructure and development left a mark. His efforts to promote African unity, though ultimately unsuccessful, left a lasting impact. His legacy serves as a reminder of Africa's potential for self-determination and unity.